Every night, a wounded dog scratches at a stranger's door, its pained cries cutting through the silence. When the man finally opens the door, he is met with a sight so unexpected that he gasps in shock. What tragic secret does this injured dog carry, and what destiny awaits the stranger who dares to answer its call? Stay tuned as we uncover the heartbreaking truth behind this unexpected encounter. On a cold as moonlit evening in a quiet neighborhood, a solitary man named David found himself confronting a mystery he never imagined. In a small yet unassuming house at the edge of town, the silence of the night was suddenly broken by a desperate scratching at the door. The sound was raw and anguished, a cry for help that seemed to vibrate with both pain and urgency. David, a reserved and practical soul who had long cherished the safety and predictability of his routine, was startled awake by the persistent noise. At first, he assumed it was nothing more than a stray animal seeking shelter. But as the scratching grew louder and more frantic, he realized that this was no ordinary occurrence. With a mix of trepidation and compassion, he approached his front door, unsure of what to expect. When he finally unlatched and slowly opened the door, his eyes widened in disbelief. There, on his doorstep, lay a wounded dog. Its fur was matted and stained with the marks of its struggle, and a deep gash ran along its flank. The dog's eyes, filled with pain and an unspoken plea for help, locked onto David's. In that charged moment, the stranger's heart pounded with shock and sorrow as he recognized the silent desperation etched on the animal's face. The scene was both heartbreaking and inexplicable. How had this injured creature come to find its way to his door? What hidden stories and tragedies lay behind its battered exterior? David's mind raced with questions as he gently knelt down, extending a cautious hand in an attempt to comfort the trembling animal. The wounded dog, though wary, seemed to sense his sincere concern, its pained whimpers resonating like a lament for a lost past. In that fleeting moment of connection between man and animal, a profound mystery began to unfold, a mystery that promised to bridge the gap between compassion and the haunting echoes of a life marked by hardship. The scene was set for a story that would delve into themes of redemption, empathy, and the unexpected bonds that form in the face of adversity. David's life had always followed a steady, predictable rhythm. Every morning he rose to the sound of his alarm, brewed his coffee, and settled into the comfort of his quiet home at the edge of town. His days were spent immersed in work, his evenings devoted to simple routines that provided him solace after a long day. Yet on that fateful cold night, his well-ordered existence was abruptly disrupted by the plaintive scratching at his door, a sound that would set him on a path he never could have foreseen. At first, David tried to ignore the persistent noise. He told himself it must be a stray cat, or perhaps the wind rustling through discarded debris. However, as minutes turned into what felt like an eternity, the desperate scratching grew louder and more insistent, echoing through the silent corridors of his home. A feeling of unease crept over him, mingling with a growing sense of empathy for the unseen visitor. Compelled by both curiosity and compassion, David finally rose from his chair and made his way to the front door. With cautious deliberation, he unlatched the door, half expecting to see nothing more than the dark, empty street. Instead, what greeted him was a sight so startling that his heart momentarily skipped a beat. Lying on the doorstep was a wounded dog, a creature whose presence seemed almost otherworldly against the backdrop of the quiet night. Its fur was tangled and grimy, and a deep, ragged wound marred its side, evidence of a battle fought too hard. The dog's eyes, glistening with a mixture of pain and a silent plea, fixed on David as if seeking help that had long been denied. For several long moments, time appeared to stand still. David's mind raced with questions. How had this injured animal found its way here? What had it endured to end up in such a vulnerable state? The dog's ragged breathing and soft whimpers filled the air with an aura of heartbreak and mystery. Though initially shocked, David felt an overwhelming surge of compassion. He gently knelt on the cold doorstep, extending his hand slowly in a gesture of reassurance. The dog, still trembling from pain, hesitated before allowing a tentative touch, a moment that forged an unspoken connection between two strangers brought together by shared vulnerability. Inside, David carefully carried the dog into his modest living room, setting it down on a worn rug near the fireplace. He retrieved a first aid kit from his bathroom and, with trembling hands, began to assess the extent of the wound. The injury was serious, a deep gash that suggested it had been inflicted by something fierce. As he cleaned the wound with antiseptic, the dog's eyes never left his face, as if trying to communicate a story of suffering that went beyond the physical. David's heart ached with each soft whimper and shudder, and in that silent exchange, he realized that the animal's pain was not just physical, but also steeped in a deeper, almost human sorrow. Later that night, as David sat by the dim light of the lamp, the wounded dog curled up on a makeshift bed of old blankets, he found himself unable to shake the haunting questions that lingered in his mind. What tragedy had led this poor creature to be so gravely injured? And more curiously, why had it chosen his door as the place to seek refuge? His thoughts drifted to distant memories of loss and moments when he, too, had felt inexplicably drawn to help those in desperate need. It was as if fate had orchestrated this encounter to remind him of the fragile bonds that tie living beings together, a call to compassion that transcended the ordinary. Over the following days, David dedicated himself to nursing the wounded dog back to health. He visited the local veterinarian, who confirmed that while the injury was severe, the dog's condition was stable enough to recover with proper care. As he tended to the animal's needs, administering medication, changing bandages, and providing gentle reassurance, David began to observe subtle behaviors that hinted at a mysterious past. The dog would sometimes gaze out the window with an almost knowing look, as if recalling something long forgotten, and on quiet evenings, its soft whimpers would mingle with the creaks of the old house, creating a melancholic symphony of shared solitude. Simultaneously, whispers about the strange appearance of a wounded dog at a stranger's door began to circulate among the neighbors. Some speculated that it was a sign of an unusual local occurrence, while others dismissed it as an isolated incident. But for David, each day with the injured animal became a journey of discovery, a gradual unveiling of secrets that connected the dog's fate to something larger than either of them. The quiet moments of care gave him time to reflect on his own life and the unexpected ways in which destiny sometimes intervenes. He started to wonder if the dog's arrival was a serendipitous event meant to lead him down a new path, a path where the lines between human and animal, pain and healing, would blur into a profound lesson of empathy. As the days turned into weeks, David's bond with the wounded dog deepened. The animal's gradual recovery, marked by tentative steps and a growing trust in its rescuer, became a symbol of hope amidst hardship. Yet, beneath the surface of this heartwarming tale, lingering questions about the dog's past and the mystery of its appearance continued to haunt him. Every night as he lay in bed, David replayed the moment he first opened his door in his mind, a moment that had shattered the silence of his carefully ordered life and opened a doorway to a realm of unexpected compassion and mystery. In the days that followed the fateful night, David found his life irrevocably altered by the wounded dog's unexpected arrival. The initial shock of the encounter gradually gave way to an insatiable curiosity about the circumstances that led the animal to seek refuge at his door. With each passing day, as he tended to the dog's wounds and provided gentle care, David began to notice subtle clues that hinted at a deeper mystery surrounding the canine's past. Every morning, as sunlight crept over the horizon, David would sit by the window watching the dog, whom he had tentatively named Chance, rest and slowly regain its strength. Chance's eyes, once filled with pain, began to sparkle with an almost enigmatic depth. There were moments when, as if caught in a trance, Chance would fix its gaze out the window, seemingly observing something beyond the ordinary view of suburban life. This behavior unsettled and fascinated David simultaneously. What memories could lie hidden in those eyes? And what events had marked this creature's life with such sorrow? Determined to unravel the mystery, David started by retracing the dog's steps. He began asking around the neighborhood, quietly inquiring with locals and even speaking with a few people who had recently seen the dog wandering near local parks or on dusty back roads. Some neighbors claimed they had seen Chance limping through an overgrown field or lying in the shade of a large oak tree on the outskirts of town. A few mentioned an old abandoned farmhouse where a dog had been spotted for several days, its appearance similar to Chance's. Though no one had a definitive answer, these fragmented accounts slowly formed a trail of clues that suggested the dog's journey had been long and fraught with hardship. At the same time, David's growing attachment to Chance pushed him to learn more about the potential causes of the injury. He visited the local veterinarian, who explained that the wound, though severe, was consistent with an encounter involving aggressive behavior, perhaps a fight with another animal, or even an attack by a stray or wild creature. The possibility that Chance might have been injured while defending itself or while trying to escape from a threatening situation sparked a mixture of concern and indignation in David. He wondered if someone or something had intentionally harmed the dog. Was Chance simply a victim of circumstance, or was there a darker story hidden in its battered body? In the quiet evenings, while carefully cleaning bandages and administering medication, David's mind often drifted back to that first moment he opened the door. He recalled the look in Chance's eyes, a silent plea, almost as if the dog was trying to communicate a message that transcended words. Over time, as the dog began to eat heartily and take cautious steps around the house, David started to feel that Chance was more than a stray in need of healing. The animal's resilient spirit, combined with its mysterious past, hinted at a narrative that was intertwined with fate and perhaps even destiny. Spurred by this intuition, David decided to dive deeper into Chance's history. He combed through local shelter records and made inquiries at nearby animal rescue centers, hoping to find a trace of the dog's origin. Despite his efforts, the trail remained frustratingly cold, records were scarce, and no one could definitively identify where Chance had come from. In his search, however, David encountered an elderly neighbor, Mrs. Carter, who recalled seeing a dog with a distinctive limp near the old farmhouse several months prior. Mrs. Carter described the dog as wounded but determined, a description that resonated deeply with David's own growing understanding of Chance. Although her memories were vague, they provided a crucial piece of the puzzle and hinted that the dog's journey might be connected to long-forgotten corners of the community. Meanwhile, as Chance slowly recovered, David began noticing subtle behavioral changes. On quiet nights, the dog would sometimes paw at the floor near a particular window, as if trying to signal or beckon him to look outside. One evening, when David followed Chance's persistent scratching at the window, he caught a glimpse of something unusual. In the darkness of the yard, amidst the swaying shadows of tall trees, he saw the faint outline of a figure disappearing behind an old, neglected shed. The sight sent a chill down his spine. Was it a person, a remnant of Chance's past, perhaps? The question gnawed at him, urging him to piece together the broader context of the dog's ordeal. Throughout this period, David maintained a daily journal, recording every observation and hunch with painstaking detail. He wrote about the quiet moments of connection with Chance, the subtle clues gathered from neighbors, and the persistent questions that echoed in his mind. These entries became both a therapeutic outlet and a repository of invaluable data, gradually forming a narrative that was as much about personal transformation as it was about uncovering a hidden truth. In the midst of his investigation, David also found himself reflecting on his own life, on moments when he had felt lost, wounded by past experiences, and in desperate need of healing. He began to see parallels between his journey and Chance's struggle for survival. The wounded dog was not merely a random visitor. It had, in its own silent way, mirrored the pain and resilience within him. This realization imbued his quest with a profound sense of empathy and determination. David resolved that regardless of the answers he found, he would ensure that Chance received the care and compassion it deserved, a symbol of hope and renewal in a world that sometimes forgets the power of kindness. One quiet afternoon, as David continued to care for Chance and review his journal, he discovered a startling clue that upended his understanding of the wounded dog's past. While sorting through old community records at the local library, David stumbled upon a faded photograph tucked away between the pages of an antique book on local history. The photograph showed a dog bearing an uncanny resemblance to Chance, its fur patterned similarly, eyes filled with a familiar, soulful depth, and, curiously, it was accompanied by a handwritten note signed by someone named Grace. The note read, "In our darkest hours, hope finds a way through even the smallest act of compassion." This discovery sent a jolt of recognition through David. He recalled vague memories from his own childhood of a neighborhood legend involving a dog that appeared during times of crisis. A dog that seemed to emerge just when someone needed to be reminded that kindness could prevail. The photograph, dated nearly 20 years ago, suggested that Chance might be connected to that old tale. David's mind raced as he considered the possibility that the injured dog was not merely a stray who had wandered to his door, but a recurring messenger, a living echo of a story that had once touched the community deeply. Fueled by this revelation, David delved deeper into the archives and discovered several newspaper clippings recounting mysterious incidents in the town's past. One article, in particular, described a time when a wounded dog had unexpectedly appeared at the home of a local teacher, leading to a chain of events that eventually helped mend fractured community ties during a period of economic hardship. The clipping mentioned that the dog was later identified as Lucky, a companion who seemed to embody resilience and hope. David began to wonder if Chance was, in fact, the same dog, reborn in a way, or perhaps continuing a legacy that defied conventional explanation. At the same time, an unexpected phone call from a woman named Grace, who identified herself as a former resident of the town, added another layer to the mystery. Grace explained that she had once been part of a close-knit group that believed in the healing power of animal companions. According to her, many in her family had passed down stories of a guardian dog who would appear in times of personal crisis to remind them that hope could be found even in the darkest moments. Grace recalled that years ago, a wounded dog had appeared at her family's home on a stormy night, leaving behind a legacy of compassion that had been celebrated in local lore. Her voice trembled as she described how that dog had not only healed physical wounds, but also helped mend broken hearts. When Grace heard that a wounded dog had recently appeared at David's door, she felt compelled to call and share her memories. David listened intently, his heart pounding with both shock and a newfound sense of destiny. The similarities between Grace's recollections and his own experiences with Chance were too vivid to ignore. It became increasingly clear that the dog was not an isolated incident. Instead, it was a symbol, a recurring figure woven into the fabric of the community's collective memory. The realization hit David hard. Chance might be the same guardian dog of legend, returning when the town, and perhaps even he himself, needed a reminder of the power of compassion. Driven by this twist, David decided to confront the possibility that Chance's injury might be linked to a larger, more complex story. He re-examined the wound itself, noticing peculiar details that hinted it might have been caused by a specific, deliberate encounter, perhaps an altercation with a known aggressor. With renewed determination, David reached out to local animal control records and discovered that, around the same time as the old newspaper article, there had been reports of a violent incident involving a dog that had been defending itself against an aggressive stray pack. This connection further deepened the mystery. Not only was Chance possibly the reincarnation or continued presence of a legendary guardian dog, but its injury might have been the result of a protective act, a selfless gesture that, in its own way, was a testament to the enduring power of hope. That evening, as the sky darkened and David prepared for another quiet night of caring for Chance, he felt a profound shift within himself. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to form a coherent picture. The wounded dog at his door was a link between the past and the present, a living symbol of a legacy built on compassion and resilience. The dog's return, after all these years, was not merely an accident. It was a call, a sign that the ancient promise of hope was still alive in the hearts of those who believed in the healing power of empathy. With this major revelation, David realized that his journey had taken on a broader significance than he had ever imagined. It was now intertwined with the enduring legacy of the guardian dog, a symbol that transcended individual lives and connected the community through shared stories of overcoming adversity. This twist not only explained the mysterious appearance of Chance, but also set him on a new path to uncover even deeper truths about the legacy of compassion that had shaped the town's history. In the wake of the startling revelation that Chance, the wounded dog, might be the reincarnation or perhaps the enduring spirit of the legendary guardian dog from local lore, David found himself navigating a turbulent sea of emotions and responses. The discovery had not only upended his quiet life, but had also stirred deep feelings within the community, igniting a spectrum of reactions from skepticism to heartfelt belief. At home, David's transformation was palpable. The once practical and reserved man now spent countless hours poring over old photographs and archived clippings, trying to piece together the fragments of Grace's story with the image of chance. Each new detail he uncovered further blurred the line between memory and myth, leaving him both exhilarated and burdened by the weight of a legacy he had never expected to inherit. Late at night, as he gently tended to Chance's wounds, David found himself talking softly to the dog, almost as if he were speaking to a long-lost friend. These quiet moments became his sanctuary, a time when vulnerability merged with determination, and his heart began to open to the possibility that compassion could indeed transcend time. Word of the mysterious wounded dog spread quickly throughout the neighborhood. Some neighbors expressed concern over the strange occurrence, speculating that the animal might be dangerous or that its presence heralded misfortune. At a small community meeting held at the local community center, voices clashed over the significance of Chance's arrival. Mr. Hargrove, a longtime resident with a pragmatic outlook, argued that the dog was merely a victim of circumstance, a stray injured in an altercation, while others, particularly older residents, recalled similar stories from decades past. They spoke of a dog that had once appeared during a time of hardship, a symbol of hope and resilience amid community struggles. These personal recollections lent an air of mystique to the story, gradually shifting public opinion from one of fear and dismissal to a more contemplative, even reverent stance. David's closest friends, who had once viewed his growing obsession with cautious amusement, began to see a more determined side of him. Mark, his best friend, expressed mixed emotions during a quiet conversation over dinner. "I've always known you had a compassionate heart, David," Mark admitted, "but seeing you so deeply connected to Chance, like you're living a story out of an old legend, it's both inspiring and a little worrisome. I just hope you're not losing yourself in all this." Mark's concern, though tinged with skepticism, was a testament to the profound impact the unfolding events were having on those around him. Over time, Mark too became more open to discussing the possibility that Chance might be a sign, an echo of something much larger than either of them had ever imagined. At the local veterinarian's clinic, where David had taken Chance for treatment, the staff reacted with a mixture of professional concern and quiet curiosity. The vet, Dr. Simmons, noted that the injury on Chance was unusually severe for a typical stray encounter. "This wasn't an accident," she remarked during one consultation with David. "It appears that Chance may have been attacked or involved in a struggle. It makes you wonder if there's more to this story than meets the eye." Her observations added a layer of urgency to David's quest, as he now had to contend with the possibility that Chance's pain was not only physical, but also a remnant of a deeper, perhaps even deliberate, conflict. Local media soon caught wind of the story as well. A feature article in the town's modest newspaper described Chance as the guardian in distress and speculated about the possibility of the dog being linked to old family legends. The article painted David as a compassionate soul who had opened his door and his heart to an injured creature, sparking debates among readers. Some praised his empathy and resilience, while others dismissed the narrative as sensationalism. This public attention forced David to grapple with the pressure of representing something he had never intended to be a spectacle, yet found himself becoming an unwitting symbol of hope and healing in troubled times. Amid these external reactions, David's internal struggle intensified. His journal entries grew more frequent and introspective, filled with reflections on the nature of fate, the healing power of compassion, and the enduring connections between human and animal. In the solitude of his study, surrounded by mementos of the past and the soft, persistent whimpers of Chance, David wrestled with a profound question. Was he merely the caretaker of a wounded animal, or was he being called to revive a legacy of empathy that had sustained his community for generations? Our turning point came during a quiet afternoon when David received a heartfelt letter from Grace, the same woman who had once recounted the legend of the guardian dog. In her gentle, measured words, she urged him to trust his instincts and to see Chance not just as a stray in need of healing, but as a symbol of resilience and the transformative power of kindness. Her message resonated deeply with David, bolstering his resolve to pursue the truth, no matter how painful or challenging it might be. As days turned into weeks, David's life began to reflect this new, delicate balance between the rational and the mystical. The once solitary routines were now punctuated by interactions with neighbors who shared their own whispered stories of loss and redemption, and with friends who, despite their initial doubts, grew to admire his unwavering commitment to compassion. In every conversation, every quiet moment of reflection, David felt the steady pull of a destiny larger than himself, a legacy of hope that transcended the scars of the past. As the days passed and Chance's condition gradually improved under David's careful care, new layers of mystery began to surface, intertwining with the personal journey he was on. What started as an isolated, heartbreaking incident was now evolving into a complex web of subplots, each challenging him to look deeper into the circumstances behind the wounded dog's appearance. One chilly morning, while David was out for a walk with Chance, he encountered a local woman named Linda, who was returning from a visit to a nearby animal shelter. Linda mentioned in passing that she had seen a dog matching Chance's description near an old Chance abandoned farmhouse on the outskirts of town. Her recollection was vague but intriguing, a detail that suggested Chance might have been wandering a long, troubled path before finding refuge at David's door. Driven by curiosity, David made a mental note to investigate this lead further, wondering if the farmhouse held clues to the mystery of Chance's past. Simultaneously, David's online blog, where he had begun to document his experiences, started attracting attention. Readers from across the region contributed stories of similar encounters, tales of injured animals appearing at the doors of unsuspecting strangers during times of crisis, and whispered legends about a guardian dog that would emerge when help was most needed. One comment in particular, from a user called Heart of Woods, recounted an old family legend about a dog that once saved a struggling family during a period of deep hardship. The anecdote resonated with David, suggesting that Chance might be more than a mere stray, a living symbol of hope and protection that recurred through generations. At the same time, David received a surprising letter in the mail. The envelope was worn and had no return address, but the letter inside was carefully written by someone identifying themselves only as Grace. In it, Grace recounted memories of a time when a wounded dog had appeared at her family's home during a violent storm, sparking a chain of events that ultimately helped mend fractured relationships within the community. She urged David to trust that Chance was not an accident, but a purposeful messenger, one meant to remind people that even in the darkest times, compassion can light the way. The letter not only deepened the mystery, but also brought a personal connection from someone who had once experienced a similar miracle. With these threads emerging, David found himself juggling a growing collection of clues and conflicting narratives. While he was determined to piece together Chance's past, local authorities began to take notice as well. A routine check by animal control had already been conducted after several neighbors reported seeing an injured dog wandering near the old farmhouse Linda mentioned. Although the records were inconclusive, the authorities' interest added a layer of urgency to his investigation. If the dog's origin was tied to an unsolved incident or even potential neglect, official inquiries might soon obscure the very details David was trying to preserve. In parallel, David's best friend Mark, initially a voice of cautious skepticism, started to recall his own fragmentary memories of a stray dog that had once appeared during a particularly difficult time in his life. In a quiet conversation over coffee, Mark revealed that, as a child, he had heard local legends of a miracle dog who showed up in times of despair to bring comfort and hope. Although Mark's recollections were hazy, they provided another piece of the puzzle, hinting that the phenomenon might be part of a long-standing tradition within the community. The unfolding subplots also brought unexpected challenges. As David began to connect the dots, he discovered that local newspaper archives contained several conflicting articles about similar incidents, stories that ranged from heartwarming tales of rescued animals to sensationalized accounts of supernatural occurrences. The discrepancies in these reports left David with more questions than answers, forcing him to sift through layers of myth, media bias, and forgotten memories to discern the truth. It became increasingly clear that Chance's arrival was not an isolated event, but part of a broader tapestry of folklore and real-life struggles interwoven in the fabric of the community. Adding to the complexity, an old friend of David's, who now worked at a regional animal shelter, mentioned that there were rumors of an organized effort by some local groups to rescue stray animals during times of crisis, a practice that had roots in both genuine compassion and opportunistic exploitation. This revelation troubled David, as he wondered whether Chance's story might be manipulated by others for personal gain or to serve a hidden agenda. The possibility that the dog's plight could become a pawn in a larger, more sinister plan made him even more determined to uncover every detail. Amid these challenges, David's commitment to caring for Chance remained steadfast. His nightly routines of feeding, comforting, and carefully tending to the wound were interspersed with hours of research and conversations with locals, historians, and even skeptical officials. Every new lead, be it the sighting near the farmhouse, the poignant letter from Graceta, or the recollections of his friend Mark, added another dimension to the mystery, forcing David to confront not only the origins of the wounded dog, but also the enduring human need for hope and connection in times of adversity. In the weeks following Chance's unexpected arrival, David found himself caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions and introspection. Every time he looked into Chance's sorrow-filled eyes, he saw not only pain, but also an echo of his own hidden scars. The experience of caring for the wounded dog had stirred a long-dormant vulnerability in him, forcing him to confront deep-seated feelings of loss and isolation. Late at night, when the house was cloaked in silence except for Chance's soft whimpers, David would sit by the window and reflect on his past, memories of personal grief, missed opportunities for connection, and the loneliness that had quietly crept into his life over the years. During one particularly quiet evening, as David gently cleaned and redressed Chance's wound, the dog's eyes seemed to speak directly to him. In that silent, pained gaze, he recognized echoes of his own struggles, moments when life had left him feeling battered and alone. The wounded dog, in its vulnerability, became a mirror for David's inner turmoil. This realization was both a comfort and a source of deep anxiety. He began to question whether his newfound commitment to caring for Chance was driven solely by compassion for the animal, or if it was also an unconscious desire to heal his own emotional wounds. Simultaneously, the impact of Chance's presence extended beyond the confines of David's home. Friends and neighbors, who had initially expressed concern about the dog, soon began to share their own experiences of hardship and loss. In casual conversations at the local cafe, David listened as others recounted stories of struggles and small miracles, tales of how unexpected acts of kindness had once shifted the course of their lives. One elderly neighbor tearfully recalled a time when a stray animal had shown up during a period of deep sorrow, offering silent comfort and a reminder that hope could be found in the smallest gestures. These shared anecdotes resonated deeply with David, reinforcing the notion that Chance might be more than a mere victim of circumstance. The dog could be a symbol of resilience and an unspoken call to embrace vulnerability. However, not all interactions were uplifting. David's best friend Mark, despite his growing support for the idea of guardian animals, expressed concerns during a late-night phone call. "David, I worry that you're letting this become too much," Mark said in a tone laced with both care and caution. "I know you want to help Chance, but sometimes our hearts can get so entangled in the pain of others that we forget to heal ourselves." Mark's words hit David hard, prompting him to question whether his intense focus on Chance's recovery was a way of avoiding his own unresolved issues. This internal tug-of-war, between the desire to nurture another's wounds and the need to address his own, became a recurring theme in David's quiet moments of reflection. At the same time, the local animal shelter, where David had made inquiries about Chance's origins, offered a mixed reception. While some staff praised him for his compassion, others were wary, questioning whether his deep emotional involvement might cloud his judgment. "It's wonderful to see someone care so much," one volunteer remarked, "but you have to be careful not to lose yourself in another's pain." These remarks, though intended as friendly advice, underscored the risk of emotional overinvestment. David found himself torn between the fulfillment of extending empathy to a wounded creature and the nagging fear of being overwhelmed by the weight of shared suffering. Online, David's blog became a repository for his raw, unfiltered thoughts. His posts detailed the challenges of caring for Chance, the late nights of tending to the dog, the uncertainties of its mysterious past, and the moments when he felt his own defenses crumbling under the pressure of compassion. While many readers offered heartfelt encouragement and shared similar stories of emotional struggle, a few critical comments questioned his decision to involve himself so deeply with the animal's plight. These virtual interactions only deepened David's internal conflict as he grappled with the balance between vulnerability and self-preservation. In a particularly poignant entry, David wrote about the nights when, despite the tender care he provided to Chance, he would lie awake, haunted by memories of his own past, a time when he had felt abandoned and wounded by life's hardships. He described the paradox of finding solace in caring for another's pain, even as it reopened old wounds within himself. "I feel as if each gentle touch to mend Chance's wound is a double-edged sword," he confided in his journal, "for while it brings healing to this fragile creature, it also dredges up memories of my own shattered heart." Amid these challenges, an unexpected moment of clarity emerged during a quiet conversation with his distant cousin Elena. In her thoughtful, measured words, she reminded him that their family had a long tradition of caring for the vulnerable, not just animals, but each other. "Our legacy," she wrote, "is built on the understanding that healing is a shared journey. To help others, you must first acknowledge your own pain, and in that acknowledgement, find the strength to transform it into compassion." Elena's insight resonated deeply with David, offering him a path forward, one that embraced the dual responsibility of nurturing both others and himself. In the confluence of these interactions, between supportive friends, cautious acquaintances, and his own inner dialogue, David began to understand that his emotional struggle was part of a larger, universal journey. It was a journey of accepting that true compassion requires not only the healing of another, but also the reconciliation of one's own scars. And so, amid the complex web of shared pain and budding hope, David's commitment to Chance transformed into a commitment to himself, a promise to heal, grow, and ultimately help others find their way in the midst of life's relentless storms. As days turned into weeks and Chance's gradual recovery continued, David began noticing subtle hints that the wounded dog's arrival might be part of a larger, more intricate mystery. Late one chilly night, as he reviewed his journal entries and rewatched footage from his security camera, David noticed an unusual detail. During one of the quiet evenings, as Chance slept restlessly on the worn rug, a soft, rhythmic scratching came not from the front door but from behind his back window. Initially, he assumed it was the wind playing tricks with loose branches, but repeated instances of this subtle noise sent a shiver down his spine. The next morning, driven by a growing sense of unease, David stepped outside to investigate the source of the scratching. In the dim pre-dawn light, he discovered faint paw prints leading away from his house toward an overgrown path that wound off toward the outskirts of the neighborhood. The prints were delicate but unmistakable, a trail that hinted at a deliberate journey. Intrigued and anxious, David snapped several photos of the prints and jotted down their approximate direction in his journal. Could these prints be connected to the mysterious circumstances surrounding Chance's arrival? That same day, while conversing with Linda, a neighbor known for her knowledge of local history, David learned of an old legend about a wandering spirit dog that was said to appear during times of communal hardship, guiding lost souls toward healing. Linda recalled stories passed down by her grandmother, who had described a similar creature that seemed to appear after great tragedies. The legend mentioned that the dog's wounds were symbolic, representing the collective pain of those it encountered. Linda's recollection struck a chord with David, who began to wonder if Chance was not only a victim of physical injury, but also a messenger carrying a deeper, almost spiritual significance. As if to heighten the mystery further, David received an anonymous text message one evening. The message was brief and cryptic. "Follow the trail of hope. The past leaves paw prints." Attached to the message was a blurry photo of what appeared to be an old, abandoned farmhouse, its silhouette barely discernible against a twilight sky. This unexpected communication stirred a mix of excitement and dread within him. Was someone or something trying to guide him toward a hidden part of the story? The farmhouse had been rumored among locals to be the site of long-forgotten events, a place where the lines between myth and reality often blurred. That night, unable to shake off the feeling of an impending revelation, David decided to venture out again with Chance by his side. Under a sky smeared with stars and the gentle hum of distant crickets, he followed the trail of paw prints that led him toward the direction indicated by the mysterious photo. The path was narrow and overgrown, and with every step, the forest seemed to whisper secrets of a bygone era. David's heart pounded in his chest as he navigated the rugged trail, his mind oscillating between hope and foreboding. During his journey, David encountered another unexpected twist. Near the outskirts of the abandoned farmhouse, he found a small, rusted key half buried under a mound of fallen leaves. The key was old and ornate, bearing an inscription in faded letters that read, "For those who seek to mend broken hearts." It was a tangible clue that seemed to bridge the physical and emotional realms, a symbol of repair and renewal. Clutching the key, David felt a surge of both exhilaration and melancholy. The key, combined with the anonymous text and the paw print trail, suggested that Chance's arrival might be part of a carefully orchestrated sequence of events meant to evoke healing on multiple levels. Back at home that night, as David reflected on the day's discoveries, he began to see how all these hints were weaving together a narrative far richer than he had initially imagined. The mysterious paw prints, the old key, the legend of the wandering spirit dog, and the cryptic message all pointed to a hidden legacy of hope and resilience, one that transcended individual misfortune and spoke to the enduring human spirit. David's journal entries grew more detailed and urgent as he documented each new element with a mix of scientific curiosity and heartfelt reverence. The tension in David's life escalated not only through these external clues, but also through his internal struggle. He found himself torn between a desire for rational explanations and the inexplicable pull of ancient lore. The more evidence he uncovered, the more he felt that Chance's plight was connected to a larger, almost mystical call for communal healing. At the same time, the anonymity of the text messages and the eerie consistency of the symbols began to cast a shadow of uncertainty. Who was behind these messages? Were they orchestrated by someone with a vested interest in reviving old legends, or were they mere coincidences in a tapestry of chance and fate? In one particularly charged moment, as David sat by his desk late at night, he reviewed the blurry photo of the farmhouse again. The image, with its ghostly outline and uncertain details, seemed to pulse with a promise of undiscovered truths. The old key lay beside his notebook, its inscription reflecting a commitment to mend not only physical wounds, but also the deeper, often hidden, scars of the heart. In that quiet solitude, David resolved that his journey was far from over. The interconnected threads of mystery and legend were leading him to a critical juncture, a moment when the past would confront the present in a revelation that might forever change the meaning of compassion and healing in his community. As the clues and mysterious messages continued to accumulate, David's investigation began to weave together an even richer tapestry of intertwined stories and personal connections. What had started as a solitary quest to understand the wounded dog's tragic appearance was slowly revealing its broader implications, touching the lives and memories of many within his community. One afternoon, while visiting the local library to dig deeper into old newspaper archives, David encountered Miss Eleanor, no relation to the spectral guardian he had seen in his dreams, but a seasoned librarian with a deep passion for preserving local lore. Eleanor guided him to a collection of periodicals and handwritten journals that chronicled decades of neighborhood history. In one particularly fragile document, David found a series of letters written by a woman named Grace, describing a similar incident from years past when a wounded dog had appeared at her family's door. Grace's words were tender and filled with hope despite the adversity of that night. Her recollections painted the dog not as a mere victim, but as a silent messenger of resilience and compassion during dark times. This discovery struck a chord with David, reaffirming that chance might be part of a recurring, almost sacred phenomenon woven into the community's collective memory. Simultaneously, David's blog began to gain traction. An online forum dedicated to local mysteries and folklore blossomed with stories from readers who had experienced similar events. A user going by Woodsoul shared a story about a dog that had, many years ago, reappeared during a local crisis to comfort a grieving family. Other commenters recalled legends of a guardian canine that would appear at critical moments to signal a turning point, further bolstering the notion that Chance's arrival was not an isolated incident, but part of an enduring legacy. These online interactions deepened David's resolve and connected him with a network of individuals who were just as passionate about preserving and understanding their community's hidden histories. Amid these growing connections, David's best friend Mark, initially skeptical, became increasingly involved. Mark recounted his own childhood memory of a stray dog that had comforted him during a time of personal loss. The shared recollection not only strengthened the bond between the two friends, but also introduced a familial element to the mystery. Mark's story hinted that such occurrences might be more common than previously thought, suggesting that the arrival of a wounded dog could serve as a catalyst for healing in times of collective hardship. At the same time, Linda, the neighbor who had mentioned sightings near an old farmhouse, reached out to David with additional information. She recalled that her grandmother had once spoken of an abandoned property, known locally as Hope's Haven, where strange events were said to occur on stormy nights. Linda's detailed recollections of faded photographs and whispered legends added yet another layer to the mystery. According to her, the farmhouse had long been associated with a series of unexplained phenomena and was rumored to have been the setting for rituals intended to invoke protection and renewal. This revelation made David wonder whether Chance's path, from the farmhouse to his doorstep, was part of a larger journey meant to signal a time of communal rebirth. Further complicating matters, a local veterinarian, Dr. Simmons, who had treated Chance, mentioned that the nature of the wound was unusual. While typical injuries from animal confrontations were straightforward, Chance's wound bore peculiar markings, a pattern that hinted at deliberate infliction rather than a random accident. Dr. Simmons speculated that the injury might have been the result of a struggle with another dog known for its aggressive behavior. This possibility stirred up memories among some longtime residents who recalled a time when a pack of feral dogs had roamed the outskirts of town, causing chaos before mysteriously disappearing. The recollection sparked heated discussions at community meetings about the dual nature of the wild, capable of both fierce brutality and gentle redemption. As these disparate threads converged, David began organizing informal gatherings with local residents who shared their own small-scale experiences. In one such meeting held in a modest community hall, an elderly man recalled a time during a severe winter when a stray dog had appeared as if out of nowhere, bringing together a fractured neighborhood to care for one another. Another resident, a middle-aged woman, described a recurring dream about a luminous dog that signified hope and renewal. These intimate stories, rich with personal loss and eventual healing, lent credence to the emerging narrative that Chance was a symbol of more than individual tragedy. It was a signifier of communal transformation. All the while, anonymous messages continued to arrive, each one more cryptic than the last. One message urged David to guard the legacy of broken hearts, while another hinted that the key to understanding lay in revisiting long-forgotten family records. These messages, while mysterious and unsettling, spurred David to reconnect with distant relatives. A letter from his cousin Eleanor, filled with heartfelt recollections of old family gatherings and traditions centered around care for animals, reminded him that his lineage might have always been intertwined with the natural world's mysteries. Each new subplot and connection brought both hope and added complexity. David found that the mystery of Chance was not merely a solitary event, but a nexus where personal, communal, and even historical narratives intersected. The wounded dog had become a catalyst, a symbol that connected a fragmented past with the promise of healing and renewal. Yet, with every connection uncovered, more questions arose. Who was behind the anonymous messages? Was Chance truly a reincarnation of a guardian spirit, or merely a victim of circumstance? meant to remind the community of its forgotten values. As the threads of local legend, personal memory, and communal experience began to interweave, David realized that his journey was evolving into something far larger than he had ever anticipated. It was a quest not only to uncover the truth behind one dog's mysterious appearance, but to illuminate the enduring spirit of a community long shaped by hope and hardship. In this intricate tapestry, every shared story, every recovered artifact, and every whispered memory became a piece of a puzzle that, when finally assembled, promised to reveal the true legacy of compassion that had defined his town for generations. As David's investigation into Chance's mysterious past continued, tensions both within his inner circle and in the broader community began to mount. What initially appeared to be an isolated, heartbreaking incident was now unraveling into a web of conflicting narratives, each with its own demands for truth and accountability. The once quiet neighborhood was now divided between those who viewed Chance as a miraculous guardian of hope, and others who saw the injured dog as a symptom of darker, unexplained forces at work. At a community forum held in the local town hall, voices clashed fiercely. Some residents, led by pragmatic figures like Mr. Hargrove, argued that Chance's appearance was nothing more than a tragic accident, a stray victim of urban neglect that required immediate intervention. "We must ensure public safety," Mr. Hargrove declared. "If a wounded animal is roaming our streets, it's a danger to everyone. We can't let sentiment cloud our judgment." His call for swift action resonated with a segment of the community that valued practicality over folklore. However, this stance was met with passionate rebuttals from others. A group of longtime residents and local storytellers, many of whom had grown up hearing legends of a guardian dog that appeared in times of crisis, countered that Chance was a symbol of resilience, a living embodiment of the community's enduring hope. One elderly woman, tears glistening in her eyes, recalled a time during a harsh winter when a stray dog had united neighbors by inspiring acts of kindness. "This dog," she said, voice trembling with emotion, "is not a menace, but a miracle. It reminds us that even in our darkest hours, there is light." Her impassioned plea stirred deep emotions in those present, drawing a stark contrast with the calls for immediate removal. Caught in the center of this ideological battleground was David, whose personal connection to Chance had grown into something profound. His blog posts and shared experiences had attracted both fervent supporters and critical skeptics. As the debate raged, David felt the pressure intensify, not only to protect Chance but also to validate the larger, almost mystical significance of the dog's appearance. Every skeptical remark and every outcry for action deepened his internal conflict. He was forced to confront whether he was simply a caretaker of a wounded animal, or if he was, in fact, the custodian of a legacy that might heal the wounds of a fractured community. The tension reached its peak when local law enforcement announced plans to intensify patrols in the area, citing safety concerns over the increasing sightings of stray animals near the abandoned farmhouse and surrounding properties. This decision, intended to restore order, threatened to sever the fragile bond that had begun to form between the community and the mystical narrative that Chance represented. For many, the prospect of removing Chance from the neighborhood was tantamount to erasing an essential part of their shared history, a painful reminder that progress often comes at the cost of losing what connects us to our past. In the midst of this growing crisis, an unexpected development sent shockwaves through the community. David received an anonymous tip, a cryptic message urging him to guard the legacy of broken hearts, and hinting that the truth behind Chance's injury was not a mere accident, but the result of a deliberate act. The message was accompanied by a blurred photograph of a dark figure near the old farmhouse, its presence suggesting that Chance might have been caught in a conflict larger than anyone had imagined. This revelation raised unsettling questions. Had someone purposely targeted Chance? Was the dog's suffering connected to a long-forgotten dispute, or even a deeper, more sinister force that sought to exploit the community's vulnerabilities? At the next town hall meeting, these revelations erupted into heated debate. Emotions ran high as community members argued over whether the authorities' intervention would help uncover the truth or simply cover it up. Proponents of the mystical interpretation saw the wounded dog as a call to reconnect with lost values, while skeptics demanded hard evidence and practical solutions. Amid this maelstrom, David stood up and shared his latest findings, his voice steady yet laden with emotion. "Chance isn't just a stray," he implored, "but a messenger from our collective past. The signs, the markings, the anonymous messages, they all point to a deeper legacy of hope and healing. We must find the truth before we lose this opportunity to heal our community." The confrontation reached its zenith when an impassioned debate broke out between local officials and community elders. The council, eager to restore order, threatened to launch an investigation that might lead to the relocation of stray animals, including Chance. In response, a group of residents rallied behind David's perspective, demanding that the community's heritage and the symbolic power of Chance be preserved. The clash between modern governance and traditional law was palpable, setting the stage for a decisive turning point. That stormy night, with tensions at their peak and the future of Chance and the legacy he represented hanging in the balance, David knew that he had to take a stand. The mounting evidence, the impassioned pleas, and the anonymous tip all converged into a single, inescapable truth. The time to confront the mystery head-on had arrived. With the fate of Chance and the community's shared legacy teetering on a knife's edge, David resolved to follow the trail of clues to its ultimate conclusion, even if it meant challenging the very forces of skepticism and modern intervention. As the community's divisions deepened and local authorities moved closer to intervening, David found himself at a crossroads where his personal journey intersected with a broader call for action. The mounting evidence and conflicting accounts had reached a boiling point, and the once quiet neighborhood was now a stage for intense public debate over the fate of Chance and the meaning behind the mysterious events. At a specially convened town hall meeting in the old community center, the atmosphere was charged with urgency. The room was packed with residents, local officials, animal control representatives, and a handful of passionate advocates for preserving the community's folklore. Mr. Hargrove, a stern councilman, opened the proceedings with a firm declaration. "We must ensure the safety of our neighborhood by addressing this situation decisively. An injured stray is not a symbol of hope. It's a potential threat that demands our attention." His call for immediate intervention, including the potential relocation of stray animals, resonated with those who valued order and modern pragmatism. In stark contrast, several longtime residents and folklore enthusiasts stood up in opposition. Among them was Mrs. Jenkins, an elderly woman whose tearful testimony recounted the legend of a guardian dog that once appeared during times of crisis to bring healing and unity. "This wounded dog," she implored, "is not a random victim but a messenger of hope. Removing it would be like erasing a part of our history, a vital connection to the compassion that once bound us together." Her emotional appeal stirred the room, drawing sympathetic nods and quiet murmurs of agreement from many present. Caught in the midst of these clashing viewpoints was David. His own voice, though initially quiet and reserved, now carried the weight of his discoveries and the sincerity of his commitment. Rising to the podium, he presented the evidence he had painstakingly gathered: photographs of Chance's injury, his detailed journal entries, and even the anonymous letter hinting at a deliberate act behind the dog's condition. "Chance isn't just an unfortunate stray," David declared, his voice steady despite the intensity of his emotions. "This dog is a symbol, a recurring guardian whose presence has helped mend broken hearts in our community before. The clues we've uncovered point to something much deeper than a random accident. They speak of legacy, of hope, and of the need to nurture our collective compassion." His words, delivered with heartfelt conviction, managed to momentarily quiet the fierce debate. However, tension reignited when local law enforcement representatives announced plans to launch an investigation aimed at curbing the increasing sightings of stray animals near the old farmhouse and other sensitive areas. The proposal to round up and relocate these animals threatened to sever the delicate connection that many saw as essential to the community's heritage. In the midst of this heated confrontation, an unexpected twist further inflamed emotions. David received a follow-up anonymous message, this time more urgent in tone, which stated, Do not let them erase what is sacred. The legacy of hope is fragile, but it endures through those who dare to remember. The message, accompanied by a blurred photograph of a shadowy figure near the abandoned farmhouse, added a layer of mystery and fear. It suggested that Chance's injury might have been orchestrated by someone with a hidden agenda, a revelation that sent shockwaves through the assembly. The town hall erupted into a cacophony of voices as skeptics and believers alike grappled with this new information. Heated exchanges broke out between those insisting on a strictly pragmatic approach and others advocating for the preservation of the symbolic legacy embodied by Chance. Emotions ran high as the debate touched on themes of personal responsibility, communal healing, and the inherent tension between modern intervention and ancient wisdom. Realizing that the community was at an impasse, David took a decisive step. With quiet determination, he proposed the formation of a legacy task force, a mixed committee of local officials, animal experts, historians, and community representatives dedicated to investigating the true origin of Chance's injury and ensuring that any action taken would honor both public safety and the profound legacy of compassion that the dog symbolized. We cannot simply discard what might be a sacred part of our heritage, David urged. Let us seek the truth together, balancing our need for safety with our responsibility to preserve the miracles that connect us to our past. Though met with mixed reactions, the proposal planted a seed of hope. Some council members, swayed by David's impassioned appeal and the mounting evidence, agreed to delay any drastic measures until the task force could present its findings. This decision marked a turning point, a collective acknowledgement that the mystery of Chance was too significant to be resolved by force alone. As the meeting adjourned in a flurry of reluctant optimism and cautious determination, David felt a renewed sense of purpose. The confrontation had not only deepened the community's divisions, but had also catalyzed a commitment to uncover the truth behind Chance's story. It was clear that his journey was now inseparable from the larger narrative of communal memory and healing. That stormy night, as rain pounded on the windows of the community center and the echoes of the debate lingered in the air, David resolved to continue his investigation with even greater fervor. The legacy of the guardian dog, the hidden messages, and the potential deliberate harm inflicted upon Chance had all converged to form a challenge that demanded not only courage, but a deep, unwavering belief in the power of compassion. That night, as a relentless rain pounded the rooftops and the wind howled through the narrow streets, the tension in the community reached a fever pitch. In the dim light of his living room, David could almost feel the collective anxiety of the town, an undercurrent of fear, hope, and uncertainty that swirled around the mystery of Chance. Every whispered conversation, every heated debate at town hall, and every anonymous message had led to this moment, the imminent resolution of a conflict that pitted modern pragmatism against ancient, soulful legacies. David, having just returned from a late meeting with the newly formed Legacy Task Force, felt the weight of responsibility pressed down on him. The task force had been set up amid fierce debates, promising a thorough investigation into the origins of Chance's injury and an exploration of the legend that seemed to link the wounded dog to a recurring guardian spirit. Yet as the meeting had adjourned, the atmosphere had remained charged with unresolved questions and simmering anger. The authorities were adamant about ensuring public safety, while many community members clung to the belief that Chance was a sacred symbol of hope, an emblem of the power of compassion during the darkest times. Under a sky streaked with lightning, David stepped out of his modest home, leaving the warmth of his living room behind and entering the cold, unforgiving night. He was driven by a mixture of determination and trepidation, a need to follow the trail of clues that had been building over the past weeks. His footsteps, echoing on the wet pavement, seemed to synchronize with the pounding of his heart, each step carrying him closer to the old, abandoned farmhouse that had become a focal point of rumors and legends. As he navigated the narrow path toward the farmhouse, memories of the earlier town hall debate and the passionate pleas of community elders reverberated in his mind. He recalled the tearful testimonies of those who saw the wounded dog as a harbinger of healing, the impassioned words of Mrs. Jenkins, and even the skeptical, stern declarations of Mr. Hargrove. Every argument, every personal story, and every shared piece of evidence had contributed to a palpable sense of urgency, a collective cry to preserve a legacy that was slipping away under the weight of modern indifference. Arriving at the edge of the overgrown property, David paused, taking in the scene before him. The farmhouse loomed like a ghost from the past, its windows dark and its walls cloaked in ivy. A sense of foreboding mingled with a bittersweet nostalgia, as if the building itself was a repository of forgotten hopes and unhealed wounds. It was here, according to Linda's recollections and the blurry photograph from the anonymous text, that Chance might have once wandered, a place where old secrets lay buried beneath layers of time. In that moment, the soft sound of scratching at the door of the farmhouse cut through the silence. David's heart pounded as he edged closer, his breath visible in the cold night air. The scratching was persistent, almost rhythmic, echoing the desperate plea he had heard on his own door that fateful night. With cautious steps, he approached the dilapidated structure, flashlight in hand, every nerve alert to the possibility of uncovering the truth. The wind whipped around him, carrying with it fragments of whispered voices that seemed to chant, "Remember, remember." Inside the farmhouse's broken doorway, shadows danced in the dim glow of his light. For a heartbeat, David hesitated, caught between the urge to flee and the unyielding pull to uncover the mystery that had ensnared him. Then, with a deep breath that steadied his resolve, he stepped inside. The interior was a time capsule, filled with dust-covered furniture and scattered remnants of a life once lived. On a rickety table, he found an old, leather-bound journal. Its pages, yellowed and fragile, were filled with entries detailing the life of a family that once regarded their canine companion as a sacred guardian, a protector during times of strife. As he flipped through the pages, the words leaped out at him. "In our darkest hour, the wounded guardian will return to mend our broken hearts." The inscription was signed simply as Grace. At that moment, the truth began to crystallize in David's mind. The wounded dog that had appeared at his door was not an isolated incident. It was part of an enduring legacy that spanned generations. Chance, with its battered body and soulful eyes, was a living reminder that hope could emerge even from profound suffering. But the discovery of the journal raised new, unsettling questions. Had the family of Grace encountered a similar fate? Was there a connection between their story and the broader narrative of the community? A narrative that now teetered on the brink of being forgotten forever. As thunder rumbled outside, David felt a surge of determination. He understood that the coming days would be critical. The Legacy Task Force would soon deliver its findings, and the community would have to choose between embracing a shared, sacred past or succumbing to the sterile demands of modern order. The tension between these forces was palpable, and David knew that his next steps would not only affect his own path, but could also sway the fate of an entire community. In that electrified moment, standing in the dim light of the forsaken farmhouse and clutching the journal tightly to his chest, David resolved to push forward. The night was thick with the promise of revelation, and despite the looming threat of authorities and the doubts of skeptics, he vowed to uncover every hidden truth about Chance and the legacy it represented. The stage was set, a stormy climax where personal destiny, communal memory, and ancient lore would converge in a confrontation that could change everything. That stormy night, as rain battered the windows and thunder rolled like a distant drum, David found himself once again at the threshold of the old farmhouse, the very place where the mysterious trail of paw prints had led him. With Chance quietly resting in his arms, David's pulse raced with anticipation and dread. Every fiber of his being trembled as he pushed open the creaking door of the farmhouse, stepping into a long-forgotten world frozen in time. Inside, the air was thick with the musty scent of decay and memories. Shadows danced on the peeling walls under the erratic glow of his flashlight. In the midst of this eerie silence, David could almost hear the soft echoes of voices from a past era, whispers of hope, sorrow, and resilience intertwined. His eyes scanned the dark corners until he reached the center of the dilapidated living area, where on a dust-laden table lay the old leather-bound journal he had discovered earlier. With trembling hands, he opened it. the fragile pages revealing handwritten entries chronicling a family's ordeal from decades past. The journal's entries were a mosaic of grief and determination. One passage, in particular, leaped off the page. "When the wounded guardian returns, let it be known that even in our deepest despair, hope can mend our shattered hearts." The signature simply read, "Grace." In that instant, the truth began to crystallize. Chance was not an accident. It was a reincarnation, or perhaps a spectral continuation of a guardian dog who had once served as a beacon of hope during the darkest times for this very community. As David absorbed the words, the farmhouse seemed to come alive with a spectral energy. The temperature dropped, and an almost imperceptible rustling filled the air. Suddenly, from the shadowed corner of the room, a faint, ethereal glow materialized. Slowly, a figure emerged, a translucent apparition of a woman, her eyes kind yet sorrowful. The figure moved with a fluid grace, as if carried by a gentle breeze, and approached David with a silent, poignant urgency. In that moment, David's heart pounded so loudly he could almost hear it echoing in the empty space. The spectral woman reached out a hand, and though no sound accompanied her, David could feel her message like a warm current. "For remember," the silence seemed to say, "remember the legacy of compassion, the promise of hope." The words resonated deep within him, merging with his own memories of past heartbreaks and quiet moments of redemption. It was as if the guardian of old had returned to impart a final message, a call to honor the legacy that Chance now embodied. At that exact moment, Chance stirred. The wounded dog, still fragile but clearly responding to the heightened energy in the room, lifted its head and let out a low, mournful whimper. Its eyes, once filled solely with pain, now shone with an almost knowing light. David knelt beside Chance and gently stroked its fur. The connection between them deepened, as if the animal understood that its suffering was part of a larger, timeless narrative, a cycle of loss and renewal that bound the community together. Outside, the storm's fury began to subside, and soft shafts of moonlight filtered through broken windows, illuminating the journal, the spectral figure, and the somber face of Chance. In that hallowed moment, all the pieces of the mystery converged. David felt the weight of his own solitude, the echoes of community legends, and the gentle, persistent call for healing merge into one profound realization. The guardian dog, through Chance, was here to remind them all that hope can be reborn, even from the deepest wounds. With renewed determination, David closed the journal and, placing it gently on the table alongside the old key he had found earlier, he knew that his next steps would not only honor the memory of the guardian from the past, but also forge a new path forward for his community. The spectral figure slowly faded, leaving behind an aura of quiet blessing. Chance, now resting more peacefully, seemed to radiate a fragile resilience, a testament to the healing power of compassion and the enduring bond between man and animal. In that climactic convergence of past and present, David's heart swelled with both sorrow and a quiet, steadfast hope. The mystery that had upended his ordinary life was now a beacon, guiding him toward a future where the legacy of lost kindness and enduring strength would be celebrated. The ancient farmhouse, with its ghosts of forgotten stories, stood as a silent witness to his transformation. David knew that he had been chosen to carry forward a sacred trust, to honor the legacy of the wounded guardian, and to ensure that the compassion it symbolized would continue to heal and inspire. As the first light of dawn broke, casting a gentle glow on the battered walls and the weathered journal, David stepped out of the farmhouse with Chance by his side. His eyes, filled with new determination, looked toward the future, a future where the ancient bond between humanity and the wild would be rekindled, and where every act of compassion, no matter how small, would serve as a reminder that hope endures. As the days turned into weeks after that fateful night, David's life underwent a transformation that echoed far beyond the simple act of caring for an injured dog. Chance, the wounded guardian who had once scratched at his door, had become a living symbol of hope, resilience, and the mysterious power of compassion. With every careful bandage changed and every gentle pat of reassurance, David not only nursed Chance's physical wounds, but also began healing the quiet sorrows of his own heart. In the quiet solitude of his home, the memory of that shocking encounter lingered like a soft refrain. David's days were now filled with a deeper purpose, a commitment to understanding the interwoven tapestry of personal loss and communal legend that chance represented. The wounded dog had stirred long-forgotten memories of his own struggles, and in those moments, David realized that caring for another could become a journey of self-discovery and renewal. His blog, once a modest collection of reflections, blossomed into a vibrant chronicle of compassion and mystery. Readers from near and far began to share their own stories of unexpected kindness and healing, and gradually, a community of gentle hearts emerged, one that believed in the enduring power of empathy to mend even the deepest wounds. At local gatherings, David found that Chance's story resonated deeply. Neighbors, initially wary or indifferent, began to recall their own experiences of unexpected moments of solace, a stray animal offering comfort during difficult times, or a seemingly random act of kindness that had brought light into a dark period. These shared narratives, passed down in hushed voices at town hall meetings and in quiet conversations at the local cafe, reinforced the idea that the arrival of Chance was not a mere coincidence. Rather, it was a recurring reminder that hope often comes in unexpected forms, and that even the most wounded among us can inspire a transformation in those around us. David also reconnected with old family memories that he had long suppressed. In a series of heartfelt conversations with his distant cousin Elena and his best friend Mark, he began to see that the legend of the guardian dog was a thread woven into the fabric of his family's history. Elena's recollections of cherished traditions and shared moments of quiet empathy reminded him that he was part of a legacy that celebrated resilience and compassion. Mark Ewers, whose initial skepticism had given way to a more reflective understanding, admitted that the miracle of Chance had also rekindled memories of his own youthful struggles and small acts of kindness that had once altered the course of his life. Together, these revelations fortified David's belief that his encounter with Chance was a pivotal moment, a call to preserve the values of care and community in a world that often seemed indifferent to the silent suffering of its most vulnerable members. As the seasons began to change, David took his passion for the mystery further by collaborating with local historians and animal welfare experts. An exhibition at the community center was organized, showcasing not only the photographic evidence and heartfelt journal entries that documented Chance's journey, but also historical artifacts and newspaper clippings that narrated similar incidents from the past. The exhibit, titled Legacy of Compassion, was met with overwhelming support. It provided a space where the community could reflect on its shared history, a history punctuated by moments of unexpected grace amid hardship. Though challenges remained, skeptics still questioned the mystical overtones, and some local authorities insisted on practical measures to ensure public safety. David's journey had ignited a quiet revolution of empathy. The wounded dog that had once scratched at his door had become a beacon for the power of gentle acts and the healing potential of reaching out to one another. David realized that in caring for Chance, he had discovered a deeper truth, that healing is a shared journey, one that bridges the gaps between past and present, between myth and reality. Now, as he stands with Chance at his side, David feels a profound sense of renewal. His life is no longer defined solely by routine or isolation. It is enriched by the interconnected stories of those who believe in the transformative power of compassion. Every day, as he watches Chance wag its tail or gently nuzzle him for attention, David is reminded that hope can be reborn, even from the deepest wounds. The legacy of the guardian dog lives on in every act of kindness, a legacy that binds the community together in its pursuit of healing and renewal. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary journey of discovery and healing. If David's story has touched your heart and inspired you to believe in the quiet power of compassion, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for more stories that illuminate the hidden miracles in our everyday lives, and let's continue to celebrate the enduring bonds that connect us all.